Hi, my name is Matt, and I wanted to start this project out by saying this is a project inspired by a video from Michael Alm, and a link will be in the description. Now, the majority of this vase revolves around the plywood and patterns, and to get those plywood patterns, I need to cut out plywood strips. What you're seeing me do here is cut off sections for the main plywood pattern that's going to be a little bit thicker. And once I have those sections cut off, I can start cutting the thickness down for the second section by cutting each of these pieces in half. Once I have the pieces cut in half, I can get them all to the right thickness. And then I can just cut those lengthwise in half to make the glue up process a lot easier and more manageable. And it's just a very basic glue up that you're seeing me do here. What I really like doing for this glue up, because I'm going to be cutting 45-degree horizontal strips, is gluing them up on a construction square. Once the glue is dried, I can just start sanding everything down and get it prepared to cut strips out at the table saw. Once I have the table saw set for 45 degrees, I can just start cutting my strips, and I'm cutting them at about 1.5 inches thickness. And then I'm making sure to run them through the table saw again to make sure all the thicknesses are correct and all the sides are clean. Then you can just start with the main glue up of gluing up all the chevron patterns or herringbone patterns for this design. Again, if you're really interested in how to do these patterns, the linked video in the description goes over these designs a lot better than I do here. Now, for the main section, I'm going to be using a diamond design, and for that I had to cut these into half again. Then you can just start with the glue up process, and if I was going back on this, I wouldn't have glued these all up into one block. Instead, I would have just glued them up into 2 section pieces, because that means I wouldn't have to cut them out here. Now, as I was getting ready and started to mark up the pieces, I realized that I didn't need them quite as thick, and so I cut off a little bit for a future project down the road. And then I could just cut out my sections and start to bevel them 30 degrees each way. Now, with all the pieces done for the main accent ring, I can start working on the secondary ring. And for that, I wanted to cut down this thinner pattern, and I wanted to go ahead and bevel just 4 pieces 45 degrees. Now I can start gluing up these rings, and as you saw in my last video, I've gotten really fond of this tape trick for gluing up segmented rings. I think it just makes life so much easier. While I waited for the rings to be glued up, I started turning the base for the vase. Unfortunately, I forgot to press record when I hollowed out the inside of the base and I glued on the first segmented ring. So if you could just imagine something cool right there, that would really help. Now, once I had the glue dry on the first ring, I could start just hollowing it out and working on the transition to make sure that everything felt smooth on the inside, even though no one would ever touch it. Because this is a vase, and because I'm using plywood patterns, I wanted to make sure that there's no problem with wood expansion in the future, so I wanted to just use resin to coat the inside. While I waited for the resin to dry, I just turned down the third segment, which is just going to be a piece of walnut, so that way it would make the glue up a little bit easier. Once the glue had dried, I could start working on cutting out the inside of the third segment. Then, once I had the inside cut out, I could start working on the transition between the second accent ring and the third walnut segment. Once everything was ready, I could glue on the fourth segment, which was the chevron plywood ring pattern, and made up the neck of this vase. With the glue drying, I just decided to go and help turn everything down to really start to see what this vase was going to look like. With the glue completely dried, I could start hollowing out the inside, and I just did that by drilling it all out. Then I could finally put on the last segment, a tart piece of walnut. And it was at this point that I decided to try and fill any voids inside of the plywood segments, because this is some very cheap plywood that I just got from Home Depot. While I waited for the glue to dry, I just started turning the figure so I could get an idea of what this was finally going to look like. When the glue was finally dry, I started using resin to coat the inside of the actual net. And then, once that resin had dried, I could start working on the final lip of the vase. Then I could just soak everything in mineral oil to help finish up the vase and sand it all down. And this was the result. Thank you all for watching, and if you wouldn't mind leaving a like on this video and commenting down below on what you think of this new style of doing videos. I think this helps move the whole video through a lot faster, but if you like the old style, let me know. Thank you and have a great day.